All right, guys. So I think we're gonna get started now. Welcome to the Raw Intuition Kitchen. My name is Matt Bennett. And first off, I just want to thank Larissa and the rest of the Let's Cook Raw team for inviting me to share this recipe with you guys. This is one of my favorite recipes. And this time of year, I'm making this recipe all the time. It's the raw vegan hearty vegetable chili, and I've been making this one really since the very early days of this lifestyle for me. Back in 2014, I attended a 3-week certification course for raw food chef at the Graf Academy of Raw Food Education, and so I was inspired by Jackie Graf's recipe for hearty, or it's like a thick and chunky vegetable soup. So I made my own version off of that and made a hearty vegetable chili. And so, so I'm going to share this with you guys today. And I love audience participation. So if you have any questions or anything throughout the presentation, just feel free to, shout it out. So to get started, we're gonna just kind of look over what we're gonna need to make this recipe. You're gonna need a blender. I've got a Vitamix blender here. And then you're also gonna need a food processor. And so the food processor is gonna be for the chunky side of the recipe. And then the blender is just to make the base, the liquid side. So the thing with making really any soup or stew, but I think especially for raw soups or stews, you want to make sure that you have different consistencies, different textures, and that just gives it, a little more of a satisfying feel when you're eating it, I think. So yeah, we're gonna start off with the base of the recipe, so the liquid side. And so we've got Roma tomatoes. We've got 1 medium-sized red bell pepper. We've got a cup of sun-dried tomatoes. And a little trick, we're going to also use the soak water for the base that we're soaking the sun-dried tomatoes in. I like to pour 1 cup of water in first, so you know that you have 1 cup. And then I put in the 1 cup of sun-dried tomatoes. Sometimes in the past, if I put the sun-dried tomatoes in first and then I pour water over it, I don't always get enough water. It doesn't always equal 1 cup, even if it looks like it's covering the 1 cup of sun-dried tomatoes. So just to ensure that you're getting the right amount of water, pour that in first, measure that first, and then put your sun-dried tomatoes in. So I'm just soaking these in mason jars. I like to just use glass instead of plastic for all my food storage and things like that. So then we've got 1 stalk of celery. This is actually like 2 half stalks. So I'm using, these are honey dates, but actually the recipe is for medjool dates. We just don't have any medjool right now. We do have honey, so they're a little smaller. I'm going to be using like 4, maybe 6 of these, just because they're smaller. But 2 medjool dates is perfect for this. And if you don't like mixing dates in with other things, you don't even actually have to use the dates. It just gives it a nice little sweet element to it. And then we've also got the recipe again is 1/2 of a jalapeno. I've got a serrano pepper here because again, that's what we have. And so that's one thing with the raw food diet and these raw food recipes. You can really, it's really hard to mess it up. You can kind of exchange different ingredients and kind of put in your own quantities of different ingredients. So if you wanted more celery in the base, you could add more celery. It's not going to ruin the recipe or anything like that. So, just use your creativity, use your intuition, and, you'll be just fine. But anyway, so again, depending on how spicy you like your foods, I like a spicy chili, and so I don't take the seeds out after I have cut the jalapeno or the serrano in this case. So I just leave the seeds in, makes it a little more spicy. But if you don't like it as spicy, you can remove the seeds before you put it in. Or again, if you don't like spicy, you can just omit the spicy pepper. We've got 1 clove of garlic. We've got 2 tablespoons of thyme, 2 tablespoons of sweet basil, 1 tablespoon of chili powder, and 1 tablespoon of cumin. All right, so this is gonna make, again, a really hearty dressing or base, the liquidy side of this recipe. So let's get started here. Now, what I like to do with anything that has a sticker on it, here in our house, we like to cut off the sticker part because, I'm not exactly sure what chemicals are on that, the glue that they use. And there's also gluten, I believe, on the sticker. So my partner, Celine, is sensitive, or she has celiac, so she's very sensitive to gluten. So we just cut that right off. So just to make you aware, that's why I'm actually cutting the whole thing off. And when you're in the kitchen, I really recommend having a garbage I've got it, you're just sitting here right next to me. It makes it super quick and convenient. You can just toss it there. Otherwise, if you like to compost, which is what I actually would like to start doing more of, then you can just compost that. So, all right. So you don't have to cut them, depending on the power of your blender. You could probably just throw them in whole, but just to make it a little easier on the blender, I'd just like to cut them in half. That tomato actually has a little bad spot, so I'm just gonna toss that. And so you're gonna want a pretty large bowl. I've got a pretty massive bowl here. This is like my salad bowl. No, it's not quite that big, but it is pretty close. When you're eating a raw vegan diet, you're gonna eat large quantities, especially of greens. And so, this wouldn't be, out of line to put my salad in. But this is what I'm gonna be mixing everything together with. And that's also one of the good things about this recipe, is that it makes a fairly large quantity. And so, depending on how big of an eater you are, you'll have, food, you'll have a meal for, a couple days at least. And I have noticed, I'm usually a proponent of eating, the food you make fresh right when you make it. But, sometimes there are occasions like this recipe that it seems to actually improve in taste, the next day or the day after that. So that's just one thing I like about this recipe. All right, so I've got my 7 Roma tomatoes in the blender. I'm gonna just chop up this red bell pepper. And the bell pepper is gonna give it a nice sweet flavor. And also a little bit savory. So that's what I like about both bell pepper and tomato. It's kind of like a mix between sweet and savory. And so that's really nice. All right, so next we'll put in the sun-dried tomatoes. And again, I already pre-measured my 1 cup of water that I'm soaking it in. So I'm just gonna put it all right in the blender. Super easy. All right, now I've also got a 1/2 cup of walnuts. So we're getting our omega-3s in here. And this, this again makes a large quantity. It's probably something like 6 to 8 servings. So you know, it's still a low fat recipe. And so it's just a half cup of walnuts. So I just drained the water into the sink. That's a good thing about soaking nuts and seeds is that you kind of wash off any impurities that are on there. And also it takes off some of the phytic acid, which is an enzyme inhibitor, which will help to prevent, you know, if some people have trouble digesting nuts and seeds. So soaking them overnight or for a few hours, it tends to be helpful for people with digestion when they're eating nuts and seeds. So, all right, so just pack it in there, you know, Vitamix can handle it. All right, so next we're gonna put in the dates. So again, 2 medjool dates is gonna be perfect, but we don't have medjool dates right now. So we're gonna put in some honey dates. Make sure you take the pit out, the seed. You definitely don't want that going in your blender. So again, this is going to give you that nice sweetness to it. It just adds that other element. But I've made it without dates as well, and it is still, you know, really delicious even still. So we're just gonna throw these all in there, might as well. Okay, I'm gonna cut my hot pepper here, my serrano pepper. Again, if you want it less spicy, you want to take out the seeds. And serrano pepper, I believe, is a little hotter than jalapeno pepper. So this might be a pretty spicy chili. That's okay though, I like that. Okay, and I'm gonna throw in 1 clove of garlic. Now, I know some people like to take off the skin of the garlic, but I actually just throw it right in there. I don't even take it off. The Vitamix pulverizes it so you don't get any little flakes of the skin. It just, you know, you don't even notice it. So a little extra fiber for you. Okay, now we're gonna add in, and by the way, how's the speed here? Is everybody keeping up? I need to slow down or explain anything?
Speed is perfect, Matt. An explanation is awesome. Thank you very much. At least for me.
Going good? All right, I'll take your silence for going good. All right, so we're gonna add in the spices now. So again, we've got the cumin, 1 tablespoon. We've got the chili powder, 1 tablespoon. We have the fresh or the sweet basil. This is 2 tablespoons of sweet basil. And then we've got the thyme, 2 tablespoons of thyme. These are all dried herbs. Okay, so, don't want to forget the celery. That's going to give us a little bit of a saltiness, along with the tomatoes. The celery and the tomatoes, you know, if you're somebody that likes salty foods, celery and tomatoes work really well for adding that element to it. So I'm just going to roughly chop the celery. Again, make sure to pack it in there. All right, so now we're just going to blend it up. All right, and here we go. And by the way, just, I don't know if I mentioned it, but the sun-dried tomatoes, you just need to soak for, you know, at minimum like 30 minutes. You can do it overnight or, you know, for a couple hours, but either way, it's pretty, again, it's pretty hard to mess it up. looks perfect. So something else that I like to do, oh, little zoom action there. Something else I like to do is I just kind of listen to how it sounds while it's blending. So this is like the perfect consistency. I don't always blend it to 100% pure, like smooth. I kind of like to blend it just enough that everything gets blended well, but it's still a little, a little rough. It's not 100% smooth. That just, again, gives it a nice hearty feel in the mouth. All right, so we're gonna take our bowl here, and we're just gonna pour this right inside. Now you don't want to waste any of this. This is a valuable commodity here, so we want to make sure we're getting everything out. If you have a Vitamix, you'll want to get one of these fancy little skinny spatulas. Helps a lot to get everything out. And this is a KitchenAid spatula. All right. Oh, wow. That smells delicious.
Matt, can you hear us?
Okay. All right, so we've got the base done. Again, guys, this is such a quick, simple recipe, and again, that's part of why I really love it. It's not a ton of ingredients. It's low fat. It's raw. It's very satiating. It's very satisfying, and so again, that's part of why this is one of my favorite recipes to make, especially. We've got frost outside right now in Minnesota. No snow, thankfully, but we have had quite a few days of flurries. But luckily, it hasn't stuck around. We do have quite a bit of frost out there right now, though. So we're getting by with our nice warming raw foods here. Another little tip for you is, in the wintertime, if you guys are in a climate like I am here in Minnesota, and it gets cold out, take your food out of the fridge a few hours before you start to make it. And that's going to help to let it get closer to room temperature, and you're not going to be as cold after you eat it. So it's not going to be like a smoothie. After I drink my smoothie or have my smoothie bowl, I get a little chilly. Cold, that is. Oh, all right. Okay, so now we're gonna make the chunky version or the chunky side of this recipe. So we're gonna start off with, let's see, I don't know. We'll start off with the celery. All right, so this is 4 stalks of celery. It's actually half of a bunch. So I think there's 8 little halves here. So it's about 4. All right, so I am just wiping off. There's a little bit of dirt on here. Wiping it off. You can rinse them if you want. Sometimes I get lazy and I just wipe it off with my fingers.
Earlier, Sherry asked if you washed the veggies before.
Oh, I actually did not wash these. It's just kind of personal preference. You can wash them. It's probably a good idea to rinse them with some water. I always recommend using distilled water. That's what I used in the soak water, just to eliminate any potential for environmental pollutants or other chemicals that they add into the water, depending on where you live. Our water here is absolutely horrendous. So we use distilled water. We have a home water distiller. And so that's what we use to wash our veggies, as well as soak any nuts or seeds. All right, so yeah, again, use your own judgment on that. If you want to, wash them in whatever solution, yeah, do that before you start making it, obviously. All right, so then I'm just going to rough chop this. And this is a Hamilton Beach food processor. It's, it does the job. There's certainly better food processors out there. What is the one my mom has? KitchenAid? I believe KitchenAid has a really nice food processor if you're in the market for that.
What blade are you using?
Right, so this, to make this, or to chop up the celery, we're gonna use the S blade. Sorry, I should have showed you ahead of time, but it just looks like an S. And so we're using the S blade to just roughly chop these vegetables. So what I like to do is, so a typical chili has, various types of beans in it. And so I like to chop the chunky ingredients to this recipe in about the size of beans. So we're not making it super fine. We're gonna leave them, pretty roughly chopped to kind of resemble the same texture as a regular chili with the beans. So I just kind of pulse this a couple times. And I like to do each ingredient separately. I think it really helps to, give you a more consistent result when you're trying to chop this down into your desired size. All right, so here we go. We're just going to pulse this a couple times. And if you pulse it too much and you get it pretty small, don't worry about it. It's still going to be delicious. All right, so now I'm just going to add, each time I use the food processor to chop these down, I'm going to add it into our base mixture here. All right, so we're just going to dump it in. And here's what the S blade looks like, if you're wondering. So this is the blade we're using to chop. Now, if you don't have a food processor, you can still make this recipe. You just would have to chop it by hand. It just takes a little more time. And I'm just going to use a spatula to get everything out of there. Okay, we're going to use the S blade again. Now we're going to do the carrots. Now, if you wanted to, you could peel the carrots. I have a vegetable peeler here. Do you want these peeled? Yeah. All right. So we're going to peel our carrots. You don't have to if you don't want to, but these ones look a little rough. Normally, I would say eat the peel because there are a lot of the nutrients right underneath the outer layer. So, in general, I still recommend people eat the whole, fruit or vegetable with the peel if that's suitable. But sometimes, in some of these recipes, you just got to break the rules.
It's a texture thing.
Yeah, for some people, they don't like the texture of, the skins of different fruits or vegetables. So, just whatever you prefer. All right, now, okay, I think I misspoke earlier. We're actually going to need the S blade, or I'm sorry. Here, let's do this just to keep it easy for you guys. We're still going to use the S blade. We're going to do the carrots next, or after everything else that uses the S blade, because with the carrots, we want to shred the carrots. Again, that's going to give it a different texture. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for various textures and flavors. So now Celine wants me to peel the cucumber as well. You don't have to do this.
It's like it breaks your heart for me to ask you to peel the veggies.
That's okay.
You like the skin.
Yeah. All right, so again, we're just gonna do a quick, chop it into just a few pieces to make it easier on the food processor. How are we doing for time? All right, now again, we're just going to, pulse it at your discretion, get it down to the size that you're looking for. Perfect. Again, that's about what I want. Again, it's kind of like the same size as, various beans. Okay, so we've got oh no, I forgot the onion. Guys, I forgot to put the onion in the base. Oh man, that's okay. I've done that before as well. It's still gonna taste good if you're following along and you didn't put the onion in. I apologize for that. So you know what we're gonna do? We're just going to chop it. We'll just chop and put it in as a chunky ingredient. Now, again, this is a perfect example of how you cannot mess up a raw food recipe, really. So let's just take off that outer layer.
Now we can take off the skin.
Yeah. So a little improv here, guys. You always got to be on your toes when you're in the Raw Intuition kitchen. You never know what's going to happen. Okay. So again, just pulse it down if this is what you're doing. Otherwise, I recommend putting it in the base. All right, that makes it, I think it makes it better. The onion, you can, if you're doing it this way, you can just get it down pretty fine.
I like onions, so I think it'll taste good.
Yeah. This, you know what? I might have to change the recipe if this works out really well. The final judge would be Celine, so she'll have to determine how the recipe gets changed. Okay, so now we're going to, we can just toss in. So I've got, the recipe calls for, ooh, the onion's really getting me right now.
Some people were just saying in the chat that it like hurts their stomach to eat it.
Onion?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you can, leave it out. If you don't like onion, it'll still taste really good. I've made this recipe without the onion and it's great still. So we've got some green peas here. And this is about 1.5 cups. The recipe calls for 1 cup of green peas, and these were just frozen green peas, and I've just had them out and they're thawing. I've even tossed them in frozen. It's fine either way. So this is green peas, and then in the recipe, there's an option for adding in corn. We're just going to do green peas in this version. You can do, a combination of both. You can just do one or the other. It's really up to you and what your preference is. So we're just going to toss in the green peas.
What about corn?
I guess if you are using corn, I would recommend personally using organic corn. I try to stay away from GMOs, so that's just my personal preference.
I'm just trying to say, like, the recipe calls for corn. So you We're doing peas instead.
Yeah, we're only doing peas instead of a combination of the peas and the corn. And I love green peas. Okay, so now we're gonna do the last, oh no, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. We have zucchini. So the recipe calls for 2 medium zucchini. We've got 4 pretty small zucchini. These ones we're not gonna peel. If you want to, you can, but you don't have to. We are not going to peel these ones. I'm just gonna cut off the sticker. Again, compost would be perfect for recipes like this, really any recipe. And again, we're going to use the S blade once again. And also, I would recommend, if you guys are not familiar with these little, I think it's maybe nylon or some other
Reusable.
Material. Yeah, it's just a reusable bag that we use. We use these in various different sizes when we go grocery shopping. It just helps to cut down on the use of plastic, which I think is important. So definitely check out these. They're online, or you can get them pretty much at any health food store in the US. Otherwise, these are 3bbags.com is what it says on here. Just thought I'd mention that.
We're not affiliated.
Yeah, not an affiliate, just a fan.
Extra stickers.
Hey, a lot of stickers.
Good catch.
All right, so again, now we've got our zucchini in the food processor. We're just going to use the S blade to cut these up, to chop them down.
For those, I would say smaller. The smaller, the better.
I think so.
Because they don't have much flavor.
Yeah. All right, so I've actually got, I like to do the zucchini in smaller portions. I should have done, two at a time for the small ones, maybe one at a time for the medium-sized zucchini, because it doesn't always chop them down consistently or equally throughout it. So I've got a couple chunks here, and if I were to keep trying to get this chunk to go down, it would just make the rest of it almost mushy because it would just chop it too much. So I just took out the big chunks, and I will just cut those up by hand and add them in. Everybody doing all right out there?
The chat is pretty active.
Is it? Cool.
Matt, we're doing good. I just want to make
Okay,
sure
so
you
yeah,
hear
like I
us.
said, I just had a few
Could you put those in
little
the-
chunks. I could. Just gonna chop them by hand.
Someone asked it, can you hear us? No, we can't hear anyone.
No, I can't hear anybody.
Well,
I
we
think
can
asked
hear
that
you
earlier,
well.
too. We haven't been able to hear anyone the whole time.
Oh yeah.
Well, we can hear
Yeah, that's
you.
why I didn't know when I was supposed to start. I was waiting for the go ahead. So that's probably my bad. All right, so we've got that in here. If you want to, in between, is my volume low? Can you maybe?
Your
I
volume's
feel like we
on.
would have said that by now.
Somebody just mentioned it.
Oh.
So right
Your
now,
volume's fine.
oh, okay, perfect. So right now I'm just gonna give it a quick stir just to get things going here. This is looking really good. All right, so just a quick initial stir there. So we've got tomatoes next. So we've got the tomatoes in the base, but we also want to have a little, again, the texture. We want to put a little bit of fresh tomato, chopped tomato in there. And so we're just gonna do about 5 Roma tomatoes. I see a question about the cucumber.
I'll check. Where did you use the cucumber?
Oh, the cucumber, I used the S blade of the food processor, and I just chopped it, did a rough chop about the size of like a bean. And then I just put it in as one of the chunky ingredients. Oh, that onion still getting me.
Oh, we can't look at the chat or it stops our video.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, guys. So again, I'm cutting the Roma tomatoes in half before I put them into the food processor. I think that just helps it a little bit. And then I don't want to make it too small because I want these tomato chunks to be a little larger. I just like that. So again, I'm going to pulse until I get it down to my desired size. Perfect. Almost, kind of like salsa. It's about the consistency of it. I could have left it, I maybe pulsed it 1 or 2 times too many for my preference, but this will work perfect as well. You just don't want it to be like smooth, like just liquid. All right, so now the last ingredient that we have to get down into shreds, we're gonna shred the carrots, all right? So we saved these for last because this uses a different blade. So in the food processor, we are going to use the shredding blade. All right, so it looks like a grater, like you would have. So it's just going to shred the carrot, and that's going to give us little, like almost like noodles. And to do that, you just put, for this one anyways, you put the lid on, you take out this little top piece, and I'm able to just feed them through as I have the blade running. So let's do that. Okay, so now I've always got these little chunks left over. I just kind of snack on them. And so now we've got nice little shreds of carrot. And that's going to, again, give us that nice new texture. rather than having it chopped. And the carrots also add a little sweetness to it. So really good stuff. Okay, so I'm just going to get some of this out of the way. Thank you. Okay, so this is all the ingredients in here. And so now we just want to make sure we mix this thoroughly so we get everything, you know, nice and even. I don't really recommend using your hands for this one. You know, it's always good, I think, to use your hands when you're making food, but this one might get a little messy, so I like to use the spatula. Okay. So guys, you see how big this bowl is. Again, that really, it fills up half of it at least. So look at that. It's gonna be so good. So now we can plate it, or I guess bowl it, or mug it.
Do you ever warm it up before you eat it?
Oh, right. So you can put this into the dehydrator. I've got a dehydrator right over here, an Excalibur 9 tray, which this will do very well in the dehydrator. If you want to put it in there for an hour or two, before you eat it, that will help to warm it a little bit. So that adds a really nice element to it as well. Or if you just like it, just like this, that's perfect as well. I will say this works really, I really like this recipe. If you guys like to if you guys dehydrate anything, like make veggie crackers out of dehydrated like vegetables, it's a great dip for dehydrated veggie crackers as well. So that's one of my favorite ways to eat this. Also, just right next to a salad, it works really well. Very satiating. So we are going to just put this, I've got a mug and a bowl. So this is going to be our lunch. Okay.
Very nice.
So then if you just want to, serve this up to your family or yourself, you're all set. So yeah, that's pretty much the gist of making this recipe. It's, again, super simple. It honestly doesn't take very long to make, and this is going to last. This is a pretty big amount, so you'll have lunch or dinner, for at least a couple days.
Hi, Matt. Can you hear us?
Questions out there, or?
They say it looks good.
All right.
I guess you cannot hear us. Can you see my bowl? All right, so Matt cannot hear us, unfortunately. But thank you very much for spending this hour with us and making healthy raw vegan food. Please email us the pictures. It should be beautiful.